Okay, so welcome everyone. We are finishing our video tutorials on solving equations that have rational coefficients. And again, a rational coefficient is just simply a fraction that we have in the front of each side of this equation. They call them rational simply because they're just fractions. Rational numbers and fractions are the same thing. So let me go ahead and get started with this. So the first step that we have to do is we have to find a common denominator. So find a common denominator. And we've talked a lot about this in class. And that common denominator is we take these two denominators together and we multiply them, and whatever we get is the common denominator. So 5 times 7 will be 35. So I want to rewrite this coefficient right here using a 35 in the denominator, and I also want to do it to a negative 6 over 7. And I'm pretty sure we've done this problem in class. So the next step that we have to do is rewrite our coefficients. Really hard to talk and do this at the same time. Okay, so we're going to take a negative 1/5 and we're going to rewrite a negative 1/5 as an equivalent fraction. It means it has the same value on the number line. They're exactly the same thing, except they're going to look different. This fraction over here is going to have a 35 in the denominator rather than a 5. Now, if you look at our common denominator, we already have a 5 right here. So what I need to do is multiply the bottom by 7. So if I multiply the bottom by 7, now remember when you multiply fractions, it's the two denominators multiply together, and then we multiply the two numerators. Now, to write an equivalent fraction, whatever I multiply on the bottom, I have to multiply on the top. So I multiply by 1. And anytime I multiply 1 to another number, it gives me the same number back. But in this case, they don't look the same, but their values are the same. So this first coefficient here, we're going to be changing it to a negative 7 over 35. Now let's look at a negative 6 over 7. So I have negative 6 over 7, and I want to change it to where it has a 35 on the bottom. So if I change that 7 to a 35, I have to multiply by 5. Because I know 5 times 7 is 35. I have the 7, I'm just missing the 5 piece. So I do it to the bottom and the top. 5 times 7 gives me 35 on the bottom, and 5 times a negative 6 will give me a negative 30. Now those are just basically the first two steps to this. And now the third step is I want to replace this coefficient that you see right here, that equivalent fraction right there, and that equivalent fraction right there. This is going to replace the negative 1/5 because that's where it was taken from. This will play the negative 30, or will replace the negative 6/7 with the negative 30 over 35 because this is where this belongs. Now we're going to go ahead and rewrite this fraction. So here's this third step. We're going to use these equivalent fractions to rewrite this equation up here. So we're going to replace the equivalent fractions into the equation. Okay. Now let's go ahead and see what it's going to look like. And then we'll talk about it a little bit more. This first one here will become a negative 7 over 35. And then the parentheses don't change. 3x minus 5. Now for the other side of this, I have equals. The negative 30 over 35 is going to replace this one. negative 30 over 35, and I get 2x minus 2. So that's our new equation that we have to solve. So once we replace this equation right here, step number 4 is we want to drop the common denominators. So it might be a good thing when we get done with this video that you kind of scroll back and that you maybe take these short video notes down. So I'm going to take out that 35, drop that 35 there, and now look to see what we have left. I have a negative 7 times 3x, subtract 5, equals a negative 30 times 2x minus 2. Now to finish solving this equation, what we'll do is we'll take this outside number, multiply it to both the inside numbers. A negative 7 times 3x and a negative 7 times a negative 5, a negative 30 times 2x and a negative 30 times just the 2. Okay, you can see I kind of switched things around so we can solve this a little bit easier. You can see that we've got my steps over here. So remember, we found a common denominator which we knew was 35. We took each one of these coefficients that we see right here. We wrote 5 times 7 would give me the 35 here. Negative 7 times the negative 1 would give me the 7, and so forth. And so this is the equation that we come up with. Now remember, when you have the common denominator here in the front, underneath these two fractions here, you can drop it, and it gives us an equation that we already know how to solve. So once we drop that denominator, you can go back to the other video that we had a week or so ago, and that should teach you how to do what we're doing here. So I'm not going to go into this too deeply. Most of you know how to do this. So now, remembering our integer rules, a negative 7 times 3, they're different signs. So this answer here is going to be a negative 21x. Now I'll take a negative times a negative will be a positive number. So I get 5, and negative 30 times 2 will give us a negative 60. And remember, that's an x with it, and then a negative times a negative will be a positive. So 30 times 2 will give me a positive 60. Now we want to get the, well, that should be 35 right there. That's the wrong number. Go ahead and fix that real quick. It should be a positive 35. So the number on the left, we want to get to go to 0, so this is a positive 35, so let's go ahead and subtract it. That goes to 0. Now we want to do the same thing to the number on the right. Subtract 35, and I get 25. Now we want to get the variable on the left hand, or the right hand side, to go to 0. So negative 60x plus 60 will go to 0, and then I want to do it to the variable on the left. Now what will happen, our number on the left and the variable on the right will drop out, so those are gone, and the only thing that's left is this negative, it's like a positive 39 I have right here, and the 25 I have over here. So these are the only things that are left on each side of this equation. Now I'm ready to solve this. Now we want to take this 39, we want to make it 1. Now I know that 39 divided by 39 is 1, because anything divided by itself is 1. So if I divide 39 here, I get the 1x that I want in my solution. Now I do it over here. That is my answer. That goes to 1. So the solution that will make both these sides read the same number is x, or 1x, equals 25 over 39. So very good.